Good morning. My name is Dawn Planting, and I'm here with Perry and Marquita Banks. And I understand that you have some wonderful memories that you can share with us about First Lutheran.
Good morning. I am Perry Banks from Lind, Minnesota. And I'd like to start with my mother's family. Her parents emigrated from Sweden separately and didn't know each other, but they met over here and got married and settled in Nebraska. Then they ended up at Lind, Minnesota on a farm. Then my mother was a member of the First English Lutheran Church for it started in 25, and that's when their family was there. And I came along after my dad married her in 29. And well, they were married earlier in 28. And I'm getting so mixed up, I'm crazy. Anyway,
I know that's not true.
My mother became a parent to me in 29 of November 5th. I was baptized November 29th. And then I was confirmed on March 30th of 1925. That's because I was kind of slow about getting to confirmation at young age.
Well, you was 50. You were confirmed when you came from the military.
Yeah, I was in boot camp at Marine Base in San Diego, and then I was in demolition school in 52.
And that's when you were confirmed.
And I came home on leave, and Pastor Merlin T. Johnson kind of thought maybe if you're going off to war or something with the Korean War, that I better get confirmed. And we had a few questions asked, and we answered them okay. I was confirmed with my brother, my sister, my mother-in-law, who was a Baptist, and she wanted to join the church. So she became along with us. And from confirmation, my recollections of early life of church was that the church building used to be a Methodist church, and our congregation bought it. Sits right across from the Catholic Church, and it was a long time before I got out of Sunday school, but I sure remember Sunday school. We sat down in the basement next to 2 or 3 caskets and had Sunday school, and it was okay. It was fun. and my classmates, I can't remember hardly any names. The one I really remember was Leroy Elton. And his folks came, his dad would come into the basement, walk in with all dressed up. Come on, we're going now. Leroy got to get out of Sunday school and go to a picnic the rest of the day. And we had to sit there. So trying to think of what next I was into. Marquita, you should bump me along.
I believe said you were in the Sunday school Christmas program.
Oh, yes, we were shepherds with
Yes.
shawls and canes, you know. And at least I didn't have to say anything. Just
And then perhaps you'd like to tell about your recollections of your mother's funeral there.
Oh, that was terrible. My mother died from a blood clot following childbirth, my youngest sister. And that's an awful thing. She was 28 years old and left 4 kids. And so my brother and I were the oldest 2, so we stayed home. The sisters went to, my oldest, Catherine, went to Grandma and Grandpa Swanson. And Irene went to Alvin and Sophie Swanson, my uncle and aunt. So for 2 years that went on. And then my dad he married Adina Hare. She was a teacher in Lind, and she wasn't used to farm life, but she worked awful hard at it and did a good job. And it was a big change from being a teacher to a full-time mother to 4 kids. Anyway, have you got another idea?
Well, you commented about the feeling you had the day of your mother's funeral at the church.
Yeah, I
That
forgot.
is where the Ray Camp mortuary
We
was.
came to the funeral, and at the funeral, afterwards, everybody, I suppose there was a dinner or a lunch, and everybody's laughing and having a great time. I couldn't understand that. I was old enough, I was 7 years old. So I knew better than to be laughing and joking at a funeral. That's what I thought. But that's neither here nor there anymore.
You had some young adult activities.
Yeah, we had young adult groups that there were probably about 6 or 8 people came, and we had games. We had shuffleboard and ping pong and stuff down the basement. Shuffleboard painted on the cement floor. Just all you had to do was move the tables and chairs and had pretty good fun. And Elmer
Leonard Johnson and
Johnson,
Bob Remler, I think.
he was a member of that, but he was a teacher And the rest of us were younger than him, so we kind of looked up to him. And I really appreciated Merlin Johnson for having accepted me into the confirmation class. It meant quite a bit because from my boot camp platoon, 1/3 of them that went to Korea was dead in 6 weeks. And that's just a bunch of kids. So that's not good.
So that meant a lot to you to be confirmed then before you left.
What was that?
That meant a lot to you to be confirmed before you left.
Yes.
Yes,
It was nice of him.
yes. And then that was also the time that his mother, his stepmother, and his brother and his older sister were also confirmed together. And his younger sister was confirmed that spring in the confirmation class.
Yeah.
They were all busy working on the farm, so as Perry said, you know, when you're teenage boys, you look to find a job sometimes on Sunday instead of being in church. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and my first recollection of a minister was Harry R. Gregerson, who I just remember him, and that's it. But he started Lutheran Vespers, which was a big deal. And this church has had many nice, very good ministers. And our church staff has worked really hard and been a good addition to the church. A couple of members that I think of, staff members that were long-term hard workers and always with a smile, was Jane Wilkinson and Corliss Knutson. They put their whole heart into it. So thank you to all the staff, and as far as I'm concerned, we had all really good people in the congregation. I better turn it over.
Well, good morning, John. And we bring you greetings today from generations of Banks families who have attended this church, going way back to 1925 when the church began. There had been a unit with Russell earlier, prior to that, but 1925 when this church began in the Ray Camp mortuary building as we know it, was there then for many, many years. And Perry's pastor that baptized him was Reverend Sondager, and I believe when he left here, he went to Canada. But Perry remembers, of course, the memories of being there as a very young child with his family. But I came to Marshall in 1959 from the University of Minnesota and accepted a teaching position at the Marshall Middle School, which at that time was called Marshall Junior High School. And I roomed with a lady who was a church member, Ruby Ferguson, who had an apartment for teachers in her home. And she was a member here, and she liked if we would drive her old Buick car to church, because she really didn't care to drive anymore. So I attended church here for 4 years prior to marrying Perry and then joining the congregation that fall. So it'll be 60 years this next month in September since I joined the church here. But
So you have many wonderful memories.
we have raised our family here in this congregation. We have 4 children, and they all have been baptized, confirmed here, and we've had many, many, many family events here, whether it's births or if it was funerals, but many events throughout the years, and participating in many activities as a family. We appreciate all the young people that became friends of our children, and those persons, through them, we also made a lot of friends with other parents that was in the congregation.
Yes, and I'm sure that as you look out, being a teacher, you probably see a lot of your students out there, as well as their families. So can you tell us a little about the last event that you held here? I believe it was Perry's birthday, is that correct?
Perry's 90th birthday was in 2009. He will be 94 this fall, but that was in 2009. We always enjoy getting people together. We think that that's really important, to be connected to one another, and so that's always a fun time if you can do that, and sharing the faith and sharing friendship with each other.
Wasn't that 2020?
No, it was 2019 was your birthday. 2000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I did have many, many students, yes, who were members here, and also families that would come to conferences and not be a member of a church, and this was another possibility for them. So it was nice. I really enjoyed on Sunday morning when we had our coffee in the church dining room, because people were seated at tables, which was a little easier, especially for elders, and you could walk around and greet people and help to connect people, because perhaps we knew someone that they would have a chance to meet and get acquainted with.
And I
And
guess
now-
that's why we call this a church family.
Right, the church family, and that's so important.
Can you tell us a little bit about your children's programs, your children's activities that you recall that they probably have wonderful memories of?
Oh, they were involved in lots and lots of activities here, from, the Sunday school events, the Sunday school programs, Bible camp, involved in youth trips and youth group. They were involved in choirs, I think I mentioned that. Work days that they had, and all of those types of activities, because that was important. If we were out at a basketball game or an athletic event on Saturday night, Sunday morning, no matter how late it was, the fan bus got back, we were in church on Sunday morning, but the chores had to be done first.
I remember your mother. She was a very active woman in the church, and I remember her helping with many, many things. Can you remember some of the things that you recall working with her, as far as in the kitchen or various things like that?
At the church?
Yes.
At the time I was teaching, I may not have been necessarily in the kitchen working with her, but we certainly did, of course, a lot of that on the farm. But Adina really, which is her name, Adina really enjoyed doing the Bible studies for her circle group. So she would have the circle group come out to the farm, and she would prepare an afternoon of conversation and Bible study and their little lunch. And some of the other ladies that didn't care to do the Bible study would offer other little things, like some would make little knit items for one another to share in friendship, which was very nice of them. But she really enjoyed doing that. She wasn't as interested in necessarily the foods work, but she was a very studious person that really enjoyed doing the Bible study and the Bible. She grew up as a Baptist, so she had an interesting background from Wishick, North Dakota. And when she came to the farm, she had never lived on a farm. She knew nothing about farming and raising a family of 4 children that were from they were from 10 to 2.5, and she also raised chickens. And Adina learned to raise chickens by reading the Farmer magazine. A lady by the name of Clara wrote articles, and she would read these articles so she would learn too how to do big gardens, all of the typical farm activities. When she had threshers, she put white tablecloths on the table because that's what she thought was appropriate, and served the food. And, you know, the first time the food hardly went around the table, and the next day she'd double the amount. So it was lots of interesting learnings for her.
So that just shows that she really did like learning.
Right.
So she was able
Enjoyed
to
it.
share her faith
Yes, and
through
she
that learning.
certainly did, and that was very important to her, for her grandchildren, that she was very interested in what their activities were too in the church.
That's great. I see you have some things. Would you like to share with us?
Well, we brought along Perry's mother's photo. Perry's mother was in the first confirmation class at First Lutheran. And the first confirmation class was in 1926. This, we call her Mother Edith, 1926. And she was confirmed with her sister Hannah Swanson Anderson, who raised her family at Cottonwood, and several other Lind young people, because Lind did not have a Lutheran church. It had a Methodist church, and that was the background of the Banks family. So the Swanson family, Edith and her family, came here, and she was in the first class from the church. Also, we have Perry's little confirmation sheet, and the confirmation sheet is kind of a single folder, and sometimes we know that more in our era, our children's were a little thicker for things. And then we have another little item here, which was your baptism. This is Perry's baptism, 1929, by Reverend Sondager. And then I brought a number of things, because one of the things you were interested in was the difference between confirmation of our children, which was, I think in most cases, 2 years. Sometimes they had gone to 3 years, but I don't believe we had children in the 3-year programs. But my home was at Clarkfield, Minnesota, Spring Creek Lutheran Church, which was rural Clarkfield, and a church that had been started by my Christensen ancestors. And so when we did confirmation, we had our confirmation class in Clarkfield Lutheran, but we still had our class separate, our 5 members, and then they had their class at a different time. But not only did we study, of course, the small catechism, which was the color of our little book, we also had Bible history every week we went. And then we had something called release time. So for 1 hour every week, if your parents chose, you went across the street to the little schoolhouse, which was where they conducted, the church conducted the release time program, and we would do our studying there of whatever Bible topic was for the day. But to graduate from 8th grade at the release time, you needed to write the entire catechism, and we were even graded on it. But of course, in confirmation in those years, you had a lot of questioning and a lot of memory work, and that was a very important part of that.
So you brought a very strong faith into the family
yes.
when you married Perry and his faithful family.
Yes, so that's very important to us. There's lots of different activities that the church has provided for its people through the years. And as I'm sure the culture changes and the interest of people, I think one of the things that, instead of thinking of specific individuals, I'd like to think of groups of peoples.
Please do.
And
Please do.
I think of the year that I was Sunday school superintendent. And I remember one of our neighbors was Bernice and Mickey Wiewitzer. Perry and Mickey were high school classmates. They had 5 boys, and the 2 oldest boys would come at 9:30 every Sunday morning, and they would pass the offering plates around to each of the Sunday school rooms, but dressed with their Marshall High School letter jacket on. And I think of the role modeling that these young men did. And they were probably juniors and seniors at that time. But just going from Sunday school room to Sunday school room, having a conversation and picking up the little offering that the children had brought. And then as we get to the part of our life and as elders, I think of the important role the elders played in the lives of our children. And we really enjoyed the coffee hour down in the dining room where people had room to sit and be. And what was interesting was all of the seniors, but of course senior housing has changed today, but all of the senior members were always so encouraging of our children. They would wonder about them. They would wonder about your activity in church or your activity in school or attend an activity or comment. And that's a wonderful thing for young people to be encouraged by the elders of the congregation. So I think that we're really grateful for those many peoples that were just so supportive of our children in those years.
Yeah, we have had some wonderful mentors throughout the years. I know
Yes,
that. Yes. And you're included. I can remember many times being welcomed by you, and so that's a wonderful thing that First Lutheran does have.
Yes, that's very important to be and to feel welcome in the church and the activities that all of those folks provided during those years.
Can you tell us a little bit about when the new sanctuary was built, how that all came about? I know that it was a trying area as well as a exciting time for the church.
Well, there's always many decisions that need to be made, and as those decisions are made, we move forward. But I remember as we went from the old sanctuary over here to this sanctuary, and also the one time as we were doing some additions on the church, we had a service at the high school, which was really interesting because everyone then could be in one space.
That's great. So, can you tell me a little bit about your work, say, besides in the Sunday school? Do you remember any of the activities in the kitchen or in the, just anything that you recall?
The one, I enjoyed being on a call committee. I enjoyed being on, I believe at that time it was called the Evangelism Committee. And we planned and conducted little programs between services. And that was held in the dining room too, as people were having coffee, which sometimes was maybe an interference, but it was interesting to do those little pieces. And then over the years, the other general things, there was couples club, Bible study, there were circles, and of course when I was teaching, I wasn't able to do that type of thing. I'm not a singer, so I don't sing, but I like to welcome and greet people. I like to bring people together, and I think
That's very important. And I know that I have personally talked to some people that have said, she is the one that encouraged me through the door.
Yeah, that's important. And that's a job for all of us.
You are a good role model, and we need to work on that. What do you see as the future for First Lutheran?
Well, that's a really interesting question. When you think about how the senior population is changing, we are all living longer. There's much more ability for medical care today and for health concerns for people. In this part of the state, we have many rural churches who are limited in their programming. They are losing membership due to just declining population, and in some cases closing. So you will see, as we've seen just the last few years here, people moving in from the rural area to a place where they would need services. And so that becomes an important part of our mission, I think. You also see that senior housing has changed. And so people are spending their time, it might be easier to have coffee at the senior housing option than it is to come to the church senior coffee. That's just an example. And so that also affects how we can be role modeling for other young people, because we aren't necessarily in the same area. There's just different types of services.
I know that we had a Bible study here for many years on Wednesday mornings, and when a lot of our seniors did move into assisted living, then we simply moved our Bible
Sure.
study to them, because
Sure.
we wanted, again, to have them feel like they were still part of the family of First Lutheran.
And I think it's important to remember that there are people who just do not have, it may not be that they don't have transportation services, but just haven't gotten here. I've had someone ask me something about the steps, and you know that we have it different now, but it's a different era, and they may not have had an opportunity to come, or someone to come with or encourage them.
Do you have any advice for the future for First Lutheran? I mean, we're coming up on our 100th. What do you see as we lead towards 150?
As you look in the past, a lot of the connections were made through work projects, people doing things together, whether it was serving funerals or whether it was other types of food preparation activities, or whatever the activity. The men's group used to have a group, and they would have a fair booth where they served their, what did you serve, popcorn maybe? And anyway, they had a fair booth, but of course, so many of these groups just are not existent today, or they're doing things in a different way. But I think that activity of working together, it's easy to say, would you like to give us a monetary gift? And that is helpful for many folks. But it's also nice for people to be working together, because that's really how you get to know people. And that's what really brings, I think, the people together to serve. And to be sure that we do contact people and ask them, because it does take an effort to ask.
It certainly
and then
does.
to serve all of the people. Think of how the communities have changed, and to serve all families. And I think we've worked hard here to be inclusive, to include all types of families and peoples.
Perry, do you have anything that you'd like to share at the end here?
Well, going back to my stepmother, she was so very unused to farm labor, and she had to make the meal, and we had 6 young guys picking corn by hand, and they come in for dinner at noon, and she had made a big bowl of mashed potatoes and good meal, probably roast beef. That bowl of potatoes made it halfway around the table, and that was it. She really learned that those guys were hard workers, and she was a little flabbergasted, but she made it. The next meal she had enough. But yeah, the church has changed, but so has the whole community and the world in our time. we lived through the Depression, and now we're in a much different period of running with way too much money. It seems like to me. I'm pretty pretty much of a tightwad, I'm afraid. I like to save a little for the rainy day. And some of our young people don't look at it that way. They think that good times are still here. But it might change. That's about it for me. I can't.
And I think of the Bible verse from Micah 6:8, which is just really a favorite of mine, where it says to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your Lord. And so if we all would work hard to love one another, as Jesus said, and to support and encourage each other and be welcoming, it is very important. So we thank you. We thank you from all the generations of Banks families have attended.
Well, we are certainly glad that we've had this chance to talk to you and share some of your memories with you. And thank you. And we'll see you in 2025 when we have our wonderful anniversary.
We hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.